Hello, my name's John Cass. I'm based here in Boston, Massachusetts, and this is the Boston Agile Marketing Meetup. The Agile Marketing Meetup has been going since 2012. We had Sprint Zero, which was an effort by a number of marketers across the United States to come together to create a discussion forum around the concept of agile marketing. And as part of that process in 2012, we also came up with the Agile Marketing Manifesto. It wasn't the main reason for the event, but it's kind of the thing that's lasted most. We also had a couple of folks from the San Francisco area start up a meetup group in 2012, and they became very successful. They've got a couple of thousand people in their group. And then we were inspired here in Boston and we set up our own group. We used to have more regular meetings. I hope to have more in the future, but I've been doing more podcasting recently than meetups. But the concept of doing a virtual meeting is good. So today we have a great topic. Delivering agile marketing projects, a view from practice. And the event was inspired by Dr. Gary Blair's article that I had found and read and thought was a great article and shared with the LinkedIn Agile marketing community and the community online. But I thought it would be really great if we could also have a presentation. And so Gary graciously accepted and invited a couple of colleagues along. I want to introduce. Gary Blair is an experienced practitioner and academic, and he has worked with the Manchester Metropolitan University, Keele University, and INBD, a partner of the University of Chester, delivering executive education. And his main subjects are technology management, project management, and business management. And he's also a reviewer for the Journal of Productive Discourse and a member of the editorial board for the New Perspective. And he's a fellow with the Higher Education Academy and a member of the British Computer Society. And I think his main job is the research fellow at the Institute of Professional Development. Welcome, Gary.
Hi, thanks for that intro. Wow,
Great.
that sounds impressive.
Great. And
I'd be
then,
impressed with someone else.
it's a strong background indeed,
Fun
and
start, yeah.
we appreciate it. And so we also have Professor Tony Conway, who is a person who has worked at Open University. And also the Manchester Metropolitan University Business School as well. And he's worked obviously in higher education, and but he's an experienced marketer and is tutored for the Oxford College of Marketing on the Chartered Institute of Marketing Diploma in Professional Marketing program. Now, for those folks in the States that don't know what the the Chartered Institute of Marketing is, it's the same as the American Marketing Association. So,
Mm.
welcome, Tony.
Hi everyone. Hi.
And then, last but not least, Dr. Ian Grime is a marketing and education consultant specializing in marketing strategy and branding for companies. He's currently working with energy savings lighting, and he's got 25 years experience in higher education, lecturing, researching, and management of staff resource. So welcome, Ian.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Great,
Hi,
great.
everyone.
Well, great to have you. We'd like to start off by each of the panelists starting with a couple of opening remarks on the topic of delivering agile marketing projects, a view from practice. Gary, do you want to start off?
Yeah, well, I've got 20 minutes to tell you all about it, so I'll keep it brief. Yeah, I mean, basically, I met my colleagues to put together a paper on this. We decided to have a group interview, including Tony, Margaret, who can't be here, but has given me comments which I'll incorporate, and Peter Betts. And then I did a literature review, and our question was, what makes a successful project, a successful marketing project? What came out was it should very much be flexible and agile, and the principles of agility came out, and the kind of theoretical underpinning when I look to kind of match this to theory from project management. was very much the Agile project management model. It was the triple loop learning, which I'll talk about in the lecture, but the presentation, and that mapped very easily onto that kind of iterative learning as you go, very flexible approach. So that was really where we came from. That's our angle.
Great. Tony, would you like to go next?
Yeah, it's just that I noted that years ago we used to have integrated marketing communications as a big thing. And as we've had AI and all the various changes that have taken place, including the pandemic, we should be perhaps thinking even broader than that, integrating marketing with other elements, other functions. And so things like operations management, and certainly when we started talking, we saw the relevance of integrating marketing with project management as well. So that seemed to fit quite neatly with the agile marketing approach. So that's how we got into it from there.
Great. And Ian, would you like to go last?
Well, you've stole my thunder there, Tony. Thank you.
Sorry. Oh dear. We should have
but it's actually, it shows that we're on the same page, doesn't it?
That's
I mean,
good.
one of the big things I've sort of been doing over the last few years is working with SMEs, sort of developing companies. One of the biggest things that we've found when you go into an organization and you look at what these companies are doing, everybody says, what does marketing do? And there's no integrated marketing. So following on from exactly what Tony says, there's a big job in terms of internal marketing that needs to be done, because the first thing that goes when budget goes or resource goes, it's marketing. That's what they tend to get rid of. But actually speaking to all the different functions, one of the companies I work for basically sells solar panels and LED lighting for people to save energy, do it on a commercial basis. But the big thing is to get the project management team to be involved, to tell us about what's going on, what projects are happening, etc., etc. Also to get HR, to get personnel function involved, and it really is, it goes as much down even to the finance function, and making sure that we get the appropriate budgets we can spend when we want to spend. So really, the internal communications is a key thing that I think a lot of people forget about.
Well, thank you, Ian. I think that's a critical point, isn't it? Which is that aspect of what happens to marketing when things get tight. So that's very important. I hope we get to discuss that more in the rest of the presentation. Gary, you are up with your presentation. If you'd like to go ahead, which is exploring the background to this whole, the inspiration for today's presentation with the paper that you have.
Okay, I'll just share the screen. Let's go. There we go. Okay. My presentation. Okay, can you see the presentation now?
Yes, I can see it now.
Good. I can't see you at all, so I've just got the presentation there. Okay, thanks to John Cass for inviting us, and welcome to any other members of the Boston Agile Marketing Group. The paper we put together, myself, Tony, Margaret, and Peter Betts, with some help from Roseanne, kind of editing it, is delivering agile marketing projects, a view from practice. All my references are in the last two slides of this. So if you want to go and look anything up, they're there, including the two articles I referred to that we wrote. So we've mostly gone through who I am. My main job really is working for the Institute of Professional Development, and I would have used their slide step, but I did need some amendments, which I wasn't able to quite get done due to selling our house at the moment. I am a research fellow of the IMPD, and that was really where I did the research under that. My background is 20 years as an IT manager for the Greater Manchester Pension Fund, and then I went into teaching, taught at different levels and several different universities, mainly MMU. So that's really it. So move on, right. I started with dictionary definitions. Our big question to start with was, let's do the interview. Let's have a group discussion on what makes a successful marketing project. So we started, my background is very much project management. So I was bringing that to the party along with my colleagues who were dyed-in-the-wool marketeers. That is marketeers through and through, both academics and practitioners. They combine both areas. So I like to start these off with some dictionary definitions. So I always use the Cambridge English Dictionary, the online version, as a kind of a dictionary anyone can use to give us a starting point. Agile is defined in respect of business terminology as being able to deal with new situations or changes quickly and successfully. And that's what came out of the interviews and the follow-up interviews, that you needed flexibility. The other big thing that came out was the holistic nature of marketing, that it's fitted into a kind of whole horizon of external and internal influences, and it's part of those disciplines. It's not just, doesn't sit on its own. You've got project management, you've got operations, and you've got the actual business to consider. Marketing definition is the business activity that involves finding out what customers want, using that information to design products and services, and selling them effectively. So that's kind of basic definition. And a project is a piece of planned work or an activity that is finished over a period of time and intended to achieve a particular purpose. So we've got our focus. That's where we start from. So the aim of the research was projects to deliver marketing objectives should be agile, flexible in their approach. So that's what we came out with. This was the kind of conclusion, to optimize use of resources and opportunities in their environments. So when I was looking through the literature and looking at themes, that came out as well. There's a need for marketing projects to attain a level of success that generates enough demand to sustain the organization. So what you're saying is, if you remove the marketing function, you may lose demand for those services. So even public or private sector or third sector all need that level of demand. If they don't get service users and they don't satisfy them, then they will be removed or replaced. So it's an essential. It's not a nice to have or icing on the cake. It's an essential function. Sorry, did somebody speak then? One of the examples was Magog. It's a piece of research by Proxima, the consulting group, the procurement group. In 2023, they stated many companies are ineffectively spending 40 to 60% of their digital marketing budgets. So there is wastage there. So the rationale is sometimes we're wasting this money. How do we focus it? And agile project management came out as an answer. So we did a literature review. We had the interviews with our very experienced academics and industry practitioners, and we came up with a framework at the end for delivering agile marketing projects to recommend to organizations. So that's where we end up. By the way, the soup icon, which I used as an example of branding, I couldn't use the Andy Warhol classic, was generated by Microsoft Designer, which is an AI tool that will produce images for you on demand almost. And it's a great kind of add-on for things like this. An example of how you could use it for marketing literature as well. Hello? I'll carry on. So I'll give a quick summary of the literature now. Most of the literature is from Harvard Business Review or the Journal of Marketing, and I'll give you indications, and there's a whole list at the end. So Martin et al., which is Harvard Business Review, they came up with you create a verifiable promise to the customer. So you've got a defined customer proposition, rather than, we're going to give you a great product or whatever. We give you a guarantee that we're going to do something for you. The example was, one of the examples they gave was, if you hire a car, if your car hire service, you can get the car you want, not just the next one available. And that can define an organization's strategy. It can align the way an organization works as well. You've got that promise, you've got to fulfill it, and you can measure it, and you can measure your customers' satisfaction with it. And what they proved was, through their research, you go and look at the paper, is that companies that did that did better in terms of customer feedback and demand. Moving quickly on. KPIs for brands as well. Branding needs the right kind of key performance indicators. Critical elements, this is Stengel, again, Harvard Business Review, looked at the components of a KPI. Are you familiar with the brand? Do you have respect for the brand as a customer? Is it relevant to your life, your customer's life? And do you have any unique aspects? The ultimate goal of this is obviously going into more detail in the article, but is look at the contextual factors, the location, the demographic side, the customer side, and fit a KPI that fits your customers, who you're aiming at. So you create a KPI that is centered on the customer view. Okay, I'm not sure where soup can comes in, but I'll put it there anyway. New stakeholders disrupting the market. So one thing that came about was what happens when you get some stakeholders that are going to shake up the market. Moorman et al. Looked at that. This is a Journal of Marketing study at healthcare, and what they looked at was the way healthcare has been disrupted, particularly post-pandemic. You're getting people relying more and more on online products, so they go to diagnostic tools online, and then they buy recommended medicines, if you like, on the internet. So they've got there's an alternative set of products and services become available. And you've got the whole rich v poor debate. If you're rich, you can afford private healthcare. If you're poor, use self-diagnosis, maybe AI or online, and get some treatments online. So you've got an alternative focus. Alternative medicine as well. Holistic medicines have come along, and you've got alternative products here. So there are disruptions to the market, but you've got to understand that, and also maybe profit from it, and maybe understand what your customers are into and what they can have. And when it was looking at healthcare, and we're doing another paper on healthcare in the UK, was how if people don't have a kind of national health service, a free health service, free at the point of delivery, then they will move more into private medicine and rely more on these online mechanisms. If you've got that rich v poor aspect, if you haven't got the money to do it, you're gonna have to use something else. So if you're depending on data gathering and analysis, is it secure? Is it ethical? If you're putting together online databases to actually diagnose people's diseases, how accurate are they? How useful are they? If you're gathering information about people on healthcare as well, because you may attract that because your users are going in and giving details about their symptoms, is it ethical? Is it secure? What are you disclosing? So you've got question marks there. Marketing campaign process. This was a study in China, Harvard Business Review. Wickler looked at the way the Chinese did it, because they've got a very efficient, very quick way of marketing. They're focused on rapid delivery. They don't go for lots of channels. They aim at mobile devices because penetration of mobile smartphones is very high. Usage is very high, and that's their way to the market, if you like. Influencers are a big kind of area of benefit there. If you can get a good influencer in a Chinese population to kind of say, I support this product, then millions will follow you. And it's very much a long-term view. They're not interested in a quick profit. They want increased market share. They want revenue over the long term. There are also more monopolies there and a lot more data sharing, perhaps not the kind of separations we've got and the data protection we've got. So customer profiles are very accurate, and you can hit customers with multiple products as well. You can look at fashion, food, gaming, what kind of films they like. So you can actually kind of cluster those together and sell to people in bulk, as it were. So a very different process there. AI marketing strategy. This is Davenport, Harvard Business Review. Very prescient, this, because it was written in 2021. and it was talking about how do you harness AI to help your marketing strategy. So you've got the ethics of it as well. You need good databases to make AI work, and the danger is relying on an AI database that does not have a good database. If there are flaws in it, then they can cause flawed decisions. The idea is, the kind of recommendation is, you automate routine decisions, use AI to make the simple decisions, but the strategic ones, the critical ones, where are you going, what strategy should you pick, are made by humans. So you can maybe get decision support on that. What are the alternatives? What do you think are the alternatives? Again, consider the level of complexity. Are they standalone applications? Are they integrated? And how do you bring them in? If you're bringing in maybe simple information AI processes that inform the people who serve your customers, then that's a lot simpler than having a more complex AI application that delivers directly to your customers. You've got layers of complexity there. So it's saying start with a simple chatbot, start with simple databases, and work up to more complicated when your organization learns and understands what to do. And you've got intelligence as well. What you're trying to do. Task automation is more routine. You've got standard tasks. AI can maybe control those really well. But machine learning, where you're in an environment where you don't know everything, and you are going to have to pick up and use the agency aspect of AI, then that's a different ball game. Marketing to machines came out of this as well, Darrow and Bendel. The next generation of smart assistants, like Alexa by Amazon, can make purchasing decisions for customers. So you've got a paradigm shift. You're not marketing to the customers, you're marketing to the people who make those machines and program them, because you want to influence the AI-based decisions. So it's looking at a new rationale there, bringing that into play. Digital platforms, again, digital platform types have emerged as well. This is Wickman, this is Journal of Marketing, quite a long study on this, but I've kind of shortened it to bullet points because I've only got 20 minutes. By the way, I put the words digital platform into Microsoft Designer, and that's what came out with that image there, which is just about every digital thing you could imagine shoved in a circle. So sometimes Microsoft Designer just makes up its own mind. So two main kinds of digital platforms as far as marketing is concerned. You've got the marketplace, you've got Amazon model, if you like. You've got a lot of brands. They compete on fairly narrow criteria. What's the best price? What are your promotional offers? What is the fit? I want to buy running shoes. What types have they got? I want to narrow that down. Then who gives me the best price? And you've got dedicated. This is the Nike model as well. You have one brand and you build up an ecosystem to attract and retain customers. So it's like a running club, if you like. You compare stories, you compare times. You have complementary products come in as well. You've got clothing, nutrition, and so on. So you've got a more open, kind of dedicated type of a market, if you like, a platform where you're just focusing on one product and building up all the associated links around it. So that's a very strong case for brand loyalty. You're building up that brand loyalty. Customer profiles as well, disruptive technologies. The example of customer profiles was taken from an article that looked at disruptive technologies. It's Chandrasekhar, and that is a Journal of Marketing. Again, quite a complicated study, but I've broken it down to one slide and 6 bullet points in best lecturer tradition. You look at the main categories of customers in a disruptive product, a technology, and this looked at, it didn't come out with specifics, but they gave a number of examples like smartphone or the markets for digital music and so on. And they said you've got several profiles built up. You've got dual users. They keep the old product after buying the new one. The example there was older users who might keep a landline and have a smartphone. Switchers, they move straight to the new product. They want that new product. They've got the old product, but they sack it off and go straight to the new product. Opportunists, they would have the old product, but they go to the new one instead. they deferred their purchase, they wait, new product becomes available, and they go to it. They would have had the old one if they'd waited long enough, but the new one came up. Leapfroggers, they don't want the old one. They want to go straight to the new one. They want the smartphone. They don't want the landline. So you need to profile each customer group and target with a tailored marketing campaign, and be aware of what's happening as well. In music, the assumption was when he came up with digital downloads and so on and streamed music, that the CD market would not collapse. It would carry on. That a lot of older users would carry on using it, and there'd be a kind of dual aspect to it. But that didn't happen. Everyone, a huge amount of people went for the streamed music and the downloaded music, and really hit the CD industry, which has of course only come back as a kind of niche product like vinyl. Okay. So when I came to look at this, the basics is triple loop project learning. So I've shortened this a lot, really, and that's from McClory et al. This is the International Journal of Project Management, and based on a practitioner survey. It was a LinkedIn survey looking at the Project Management Institute members, and quite a big survey of how they behaved. And what he said is you've got 3 levels of learning. You've got the organization, the top level. So you've got learning at the cultural level, process learning, which is all your processes within the organization determined by your culture. What do we look at? How do we fund it? And your project level, which projects do we pick, and performance there. So when you're looking at kind of meeting targets at the organizational level, you're looking at the big picture. What's our strategy? What do we want to do? Where are we going? What are our objectives? The process is how do you achieve those objectives and fund your different projects? You monitor them. This is where a project management office would come in, and fund your routine operations. Project level is what projects do you want to deliver, and there you're concerned with meeting targets. You're very much, is it on time, within budget, right level of quality? Are you delivering what is expected for the customer? Okay, and that maps really well onto the Agile project management model, the Highsmith's Agile project management methodology, because you're learning iteratively and you're learning at different levels. So you learn by experience. What happens is you have an experience, you get feedback, and then you decide on how to treat that. Are you going to do something or not from it? And that changes what you do the second time around when you have that experience again. And it's layering that at different levels as well. If it happens at the organizational level, if you have a culture change, new chief exec comes in, changes the way you do things, then might change all the processes and what projects you have. Okay, and what targets you have as well, and how you actually fund those projects. Okay, the actual interviews with academics and practitioners, I'm just going to sum it. This sums up the whole thing, really, these couple of slides. Ready for time. So number 1, focus on the project's efforts on the customer. So focus on the customer first. Make sure everything supports that objective. So you've got objectives for the customer. Make sure you are supporting that, and you've no conflicts there. It's being properly funded, and you've got enough people. And again, this is at the organization level, because I split the learning into 3 levels: organization, and at the process level, and the project level. Define the new brand. What is the new brand? And identify the customers to be targeted. And does that brand need to change as well? Be adaptive. Do you need to sack that brand? Has it had its day? Is it no longer doing what you want? And how do you keep up with a changing market? Arrange the customers into types. Develop a profile per market segment. Then you're tailoring it to that person. So what channel am I using? China, it's smartphones, isn't it? How much am I going to spend? What communications methods am I going to use? How am I going to get those adverts out there? Go viral with YouTube? What are you going to do? Check the customer requirements as well. You've got a checking routine. All of this involves checking you are where you think you are. This kind of the smart objectives, if you like, looking for specific measurable objectives. Check customer requirements and predicted level of demand. And look at their image characteristics as well. Sometimes you've got to think about what is the customer's self-image and what is their image of the product. So look at sustainability side. Do I want an eco product? Do I want eco packaging, easily disposable, environmentally friendly packaging, treatment of people as well. Am I using a supplier or subcontractor who's exploiting people? They're using child labor, they're treating people badly, and so on, because that reflects on my reputation. People may turn away from you there. Build a strong relationship with the customer, and it's going to be a mix of technology and access to human representatives. So be very clear about how you're going to do that. And I think that's the challenge of AI. How do we get that in without removing any sort of dealings with the human? It can be convenient, it can be out of hours, it can be 24/7, but sometimes you need the human to step in. People need to talk to people for lots of reasons, and there may be things that are too complex for AI to cope with. So you've got to understand, what decisions can be made, what services can be delivered by the technology, and by when do you need the customer rep to come in, the service rep, the service person to come in. Review all arrangements and respond rapidly to changes. That's what you should do all the way down the line. Process side, the crunch is getting the internal organization so the culture supports the project. Get rid of any conflicts if you can. Look at, where, say, the marketing department is being run by as the subset of the IT department. Well, your priorities are not going to be marketing, they're going to be IT. So where are the conflicts? Where have you got your knowledge bases within those departments as well? Who has the skills? Who has the expertise? Where are the bottlenecks? Where are the problems? Where do I need more expertise? Where are the conflicts as well, where you've got teams that are not performing? So try and suss those out, because as I think it was Peter who made this point, if the internal organization has got conflicts, that can kind of feed its way back to the customer and cause issues. Set standards of quality for the project, especially the outputs. What is our kind of level of product? What is our minimum level of product? What are our standards? What services do we provide? And what about our marketing techniques and campaigns? What standards have we got there? And always investigate the results. So a survey of your key stakeholders, especially customers, is important, but also inside. If you need approval from certain stakeholders, if you need stakeholders on site, the chief exec and so on, the shareholders, you need to understand how they think. You need to be finger on that, have your finger on that particular pulse. Monitor and review and change quickly. Again, agility comes in. So at the project level, set your measurable objectives and change them based on feedback. Make sure they're appropriate for the level as well, and appropriate to serve the customer. Look at the data requirements of the project. Make sure that data is updated, because you're going to make flawed decisions. You're going to do the wrong thing. You're going to mail your existing customers with deals for your new customers just to annoy them. Make sure things are up to date if you're going to market and act on decisions. Technology should be employed as required to support the project. So you could have a customer community, like we said, the Nike model. You can use social media. You can have a platform dedicated to the brand, and so on. How are you going to sell your product? Is it going to be on eBay? What you're going to use. Partnerships with technology companies can help. They can advertise your brand, and you can have complementary advertising as well. If you're selling certain products, you can have complementary. As I said, with the running shoes, you can have clothes and nutrition come alongside as well, and you can advertise each other and push each other forward in terms of marketing. And finally, promote agile project management techniques using prototyping. Make prototypes, go through it. Even a marketing campaign, fashion it. Work it out. Work out what you're going to do. Have that document or that visual document, and actually analyze it. Get somebody who represents the customer or actual customers, and get some feedback on it, and change it according to that feedback, and run it past them again. It's cheaper than failure. It's cheaper than mass producing something, sending out a huge mass marketing campaign and having it fail. So have pilots, have samples, have a test marketing to try and keep up to date, to try and keep it relevant. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Gary.
That's me.
Thank you so much.
That's as fast as I can do it without garbling.
No, it was good. It was good. So now we'll have each of the panelists talk a little bit about their thoughts on the use of Agile in marketing projects, along with any insights they'd like to offer on the paper. To give Gary a break, Tony, would you like to start off?
Yeah, okay. Looking at the three elements, one or two things that came to mind, particularly looking at the organization, particularly the importance of relationships. And that was there. All of these things are there. Just we could perhaps discuss a bit more detail, but the experiential element and considering that we're looking at customer expectations, customer experience, but also other stakeholders. And I know the paper's got a discussion about other stakeholders in it. So I think that's an important element that any organization now needs to think much more about relationships. It's more than just simply one way. In fact, if anything, it's more than two way because we've got all the other types of communications, as we said, with the Chinese model as well, with various influencers, lots of stakeholders. Very quickly, I wanted to mention that I mentioned when I first introduced myself that we were looking at integrating marketing with other functions. I know that there are some MBA programs that have actually linked specifically marketing and operations, for example. It could still be much more closely related marketing and project management. So that's looking at the process side. And then finally, just my point about projects. Something I've mentioned to Gary a few times about the distinction between an output and an outcome. And the output is something very quantifiable. The outcome is a little less quantifiable, more qualitative, perhaps. And perhaps we should be looking at the difference between projects, programs, and portfolios, which I'm sure Gary knows about, as he sent me the stuff relating to those three. Those three.
Yeah, I left that one for you, Tony. I thought you could sort that
one. Thank you. So I can see that, all those elements are all part of what we used to think as simply straightforward marketing. And now that marketing has grown and grown and grown, and it has to be flexible and it has to respond very quickly to the outside world and what's going on in the outside world. So those are the things that came to mind when I was rereading or listening to Gary's presentation. That's all I've got to say.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Okay. Thank you. Ian, what about you?
Yeah, I think really sort of re-emphasize some of the stuff sort of Tony and Gary have said. It's about putting the customer first. It's about really understanding the customer, doing customer profiling, understanding which customers you've got in the different market segments. Try to have data-driven decisions, but your decisions are only as good as the data you've actually got. So that is key to work that out. Again, example, company that I work for, they had a vast database, but it wasn't some of that database wasn't targeting the right people, and the organization didn't understand what types of people that they were, so they'd not been profiled correctly. So you can just send a mass email out to 30,000 people and you're getting a 2% open rate and nobody's responding to you because you've not really understood the people you're actually talking to. So I think that's key to doing that, is to have the right data, have the right databases to understand the people, and for everybody else in the organization. It's not just good enough for the marketeers to understand that. The CEO, the CFO should understand that. The sales team needs to know what's going on. The project team that's going to deliver a product needs to be able to market in a certain sort of way. So it's really about having that synergy. And we talk quite a lot about almost sort of reacting quickly, which is what Agile marketing's about. But I also think it's on the other side, is that you have to act quickly, not react. So we also have to continually understand the environment. and what's actually happening in that environment. So that if you know, for example, something's happening in politics, it's going to affect a policy that may well impact upon your marketing decisions and what you're going to do and how you're going to sell your product or service. So it's almost acting quickly and reacting quickly as well. So it's almost about that happy balance. I think one thing I have found is that in organizations as well, quite often they just do stuff. So they just do marketing without really understanding what the objectives and goals of the actual marketing are and what the objectives and goals of the organization at a top level are. And the marketeers almost operate in silos, do some stuff, and everybody says, oh, well, you're doing some marketing. And then following on from that is how do you measure what you've done and how is it going to work? And we've talked about KPIs and you can look at things like a balanced scorecard and stuff like that. But it is very, very difficult in marketing to actually say how well you've done, what is a return on investment. And I give you a very simple example of that. Company, the marketeers may design a really good website. Yep. Somebody may land on that website. We've known they've been on it for 60 seconds. They contact us. Yep. Or they fill out a newsletter form and we've got a contact detail. We reach out to them. Yep. If we get that lead, then we'll go to a salesperson. The salesperson will follow that up. If the salesperson, the people are interested, then the project team gets involved to scope the project. And quite often within organizations, the marketeer might say, well, we started that. That's us. We got that. But then the salesperson will go, no, that was mine. You didn't do anything. They just happened to land on the website. So it can be very difficult to actually measure, what you're actually doing. So I think that requires some real thought. So, another example is at a board level, quite often in organizations, they want to see numbers going up. So if you submit a board report for your digital marketing and your website hits have gone from 200 a month to 2,000 a month, they think that's brilliant. Okay. We tried this at an organization I work for. They went up massively. And what we found when we did the testing, everybody was like, brilliant, that's fantastic. Went from something like 200 a month to 2,000 a month. Okay. Nearly every one of those 2,000 was a normal customer. Yeah. So, and what we was looking to do was sell to businesses. Yeah. So selling solar panels. So every residential person was coming in saying, we want solar panels. But the business is about selling to businesses, commercial businesses. So what we did there is we attracted lots more hits and lots more people, but it was totally the wrong people. And again, I think there's this whole thing of doing things like A/B testing. You've got a web page, maybe test two of them, see what works, but you really need to do some detailed sort of evaluation. Monitoring and evaluation of what's going on, and that is then where agile marketing comes in, is where you know how to respond and change to that. So that's my insight.
Great, thank you, Ian. So let me follow up with a couple of questions here. Customer focus is an important aspect, and you mentioned some of this, Ian, is an important aspect of marketing and agile marketing. How would you interpret this practice? But to follow on from what some of the folks here said, Ian, you had said that often companies don't always put the effort into understanding the customer. To me, that means building a buyer persona or doing the customer journey mapping, right? And I see companies constantly doing that initial effort, but they're not always updating it over time, so they're not seeing the change that happens. And agile, of course, isn't about necessarily always going faster, but it's about the focus of where you go, and as a result of that focus, you focus on the work that you're supposed to be doing that's going to have the biggest impact, and therefore you go faster because you're going to get more results as an essence. And so how do you think, Gary, how is customer focus an important aspect of marketing and agile marketing?
I think it's at the core really, because if your focus isn't the customer, what is it? I think the point Ian made was very good one, because there is another example where the hits on the website were increased, but and the marketing, the actual marketing communications increased, but what they were doing was just annoying people, because a lot of customers were getting lots and lots of communication and batting it away, because they just kind of stepped up. Oh, I've sent out 3,000 emails targeting people, but they were actually just annoying them. A lot of them were their own customers who, they weren't doing it in a kind of sensitive way. So there's a danger of being seduced by the numbers there. So the numbers have to be meaningful. I think the best thing is,
Gary, do you mind if I interrupt for a
you
second?
usually do, yeah. You usually do over a pizza, don't you?
and I think
I'm not got pepperoni in front of me, but you can go ahead.
While you still don't lose track of what you're saying.
But it's gone now. It's all gone.
I think we've still got this big split between what marketing is and what selling is. And the definition that you use from Cambridge, for example, in my view, was wrong. It isn't about selling.
Well,
Cambridge is wrong.
Cambridge is wrong.
Cambridge is wrong.
Cambridge,
I don't think marketing is selling anymore.
Universities of the world.
Marketing is no longer selling. It may include selling. And I think what Ian was talking about was, or when we were talking, or when you were saying about marketing starts it all off, then it goes to different departments. And then there's that assumption that we need to do the sales part, but the sales part doesn't necessarily link at all back to the original marketing. And I think marketing is now about the key is mutual benefit. What I was saying about relationships and experiential stuff. And I think that's why it didn't work, because between marketing, just putting numbers up doesn't necessarily satisfy or mutually benefit. Now you can carry on. I'm sorry for the interruption. It was on my head. I wanted to say it.
But I think that's the problem, isn't it? You're saying marketing's not selling, but it's the same thing. We're looking at a holistic approach. If one fails, the other fails.
Yeah.
Your marketing campaign doesn't work, you don't get your sales in. If your marketing campaign works and you get customers in and you don't sell properly to them, that fails as well. So I'm taking marketing from the Cambridge Dictionary view, which is a holistic view, looking at the whole thing. And really, if that was the theme of the paper, if you like, if anything falls down, your production falls down, your maintenance, your after sales service, that affects the customer. So you kind of, you're not going to sell to them again. Your marketing is going to be ineffective if they've got the wrong car and they've hired they wanted to hire a Jaguar, and now they've got a Fiat. So that's gone. So I think it's a holistic approach, really. So numbers have to be meaningful. What I like particularly is where you go to the customer and you ask them their opinion. You can get numbers out of that and say, are you very satisfied on a scale of 10 or whatever? And that can be useful as well. You can see where people are not satisfied and where there's room for improvement. So I think it's getting that good flow of information. And as Ian said, get ahead of the game. If you see it coming, do something. Well, the other kind of totally disruptive thing is companies sometimes go the opposite way. They don't go for the trend. They think, hang on, no one's done that. Let's try it and make a market. I mean, the tablet came out. Nobody thought, what's a tablet? It's useless, isn't it? It's not a laptop. It's not a phone. What is it? But there was a market. Apple pushed it. You've got a whole market, and people jumped on the back of it. So sometimes it's disruptive. You don't go the way of everyone else. You find something, you make a good product, and you sell it really well. You get ahead of the game. I rest my case. Did any of that answer your question, John? I know we went off.
No, indeed, and I just want to go back to Ian. I just want to go back to Ian and sort of bring up that point that you had discussed regarding that example that you gave about the company where they were able to generate a lot more activity, but it was the wrong customer. So, what do you think happened there that went wrong? Was it just bad targeting on their part, or what was it?
Basically, yeah, they didn't truly understand what the customer was, and then therefore when they went for things like Google AdWords and stuff like that, they put the wrong words in.
Yeah,
So to put words in like commercial business rather than
right.
you know uh, just attracting the actual residential customers. So basically, they had a lot of the Google AdWords were just inappropriate for a commercial business.
And were they able to recognize the error that they were made and then adjust the campaign based on that?
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
we went through a process with the company where we're actually working with some other agencies because we did it in house to start with, and which is good because it's quite a good learning thing, but it takes time, and you can't always target all of your resources into doing that because you're not doing your other aspects of marketing, especially in a sort of an SME type of organization. But then when you do go to another agency, you have to be clear on your objectives, and and it's not just as simple as get an agency, pay a load of money, and they're going to do a really good job. You've got to really, again, you've got to spend some time speaking to them and almost training them up on what they need to be doing, and then they can go and do it. But it's not a straightforward, just simple. Oh, let's pay an agency to do it because it doesn't work that way. That's what we found.
right, right, right. So moving on to the panel, why is experimentation so critical? In fact, I think Ian, you had a good example here in this example, but why is experimentation not only in campaign development, but also product development as well?
I think that's the
Can
core
I?
of Agile, isn't it?
Well, I was just thinking, can I just get in there and just simply say that I think that came out of what's come out of what Ian was saying about the importance of being proactive as well as reactive. And experimentation. If we were looking at strategic aspects, we're looking at the external environment and we're constantly looking at what's going on out there. And that's probably why experimentation is necessary. And that would fit, presumably, with the idea of the tablet, or even going back and looking back at who would have believed. I remember going to a conference a few years ago, and there was a paper by someone from Chicago who was talking about the resurgence of vinyl records, and that was at the time of the mini disc as well. So there was the mini disc as well as the CD.
Mini disc.
The mini disc, I know, shows you how long ago it was. Yeah, but having said that, look at what's happened to the vinyl market now, and it's incredible, and everybody is now producing albums that are in vinyl as well as rather than CDs or as well as
Great,
CDs.
great.
So I think it's the external environment. You need to be aware of opportunities and threats, and I think so it's being that proactive as well as reactive.
Well,
Yeah, I don't. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Gary. Go ahead.
I think if you've got certainty, if you know exactly what you're going to do, you don't need to experiment. That's a waste of time. So if you've got a product, like if you've got, let's quote one near me, Kellogg's cornflakes breakfast cereal. If you know you're going to sell them, and you don't need to experiment with the formula or whatever. You sell them, you can repackage them, whatever. But your customers want that product the way it was, the way it always was. I think but if you're going to sell, something more niche, if you're going to sell to a different market, then you do need to experiment because you don't know everything, and you do need to maybe do samples. You need to get some customer feedback and go through that learning loop to get to where you want to be. I think that's the crunch. If you've got certainty and it can be operationalized and it does not need experimentation. Experimentation is a waste. But what you have to be mindful of is where that product is going to become a cash cow, but then it's going to fade out. People are going to say, "Oh, it's old hat. I don't want that anymore," and something comes and captures that market. So I think it's being aware, as Tony said, of the environment, but also be aware of what you're doing. If you've got certainty, you don't need experimentation. But who's got certainty? You've still got to look. You've still got to keep an eye on what's going on. Even in conditions of certainty, you've got to reinforce, yes, I don't need to look. I don't need to change it. My customers are happy. I'm still getting the numbers. I'm still shifting thousands of cornflakes every day.
Tony, Ian, what are your thoughts about that? That scenario there's an aspect of that which I can agree with on product marketing, but I think there's always an opportunity to do experimentation in campaign marketing. So, Tony, Ian, what are your thoughts on what Gary said?
Yeah, I would agree with that, particularly when you're talking about campaign, because the environment is so flexible and changing such a lot that I think, when you start to look, and also not for profit type circumstances as well, processes become much more important, don't they, in terms of how we provide the service.
And I think experimentation in terms of process is definitely, marketing campaigns, definitely different channels, different social media platforms. Absolutely.
I mean,
that doesn't
again,
stand still.
That's what I found with some of the companies I've worked for. They could be like our type of age, and they would have been
Young
using.
man, you mean?
Yeah, they would have been using. One of the companies I worked was using Facebook, and then we started to think about what would be a good platform to use, and you sort of we worked through it, and then we were looking at TikTok, then we were looking at Instagram, and the one that we actually came on for this particular company was LinkedIn. That was the best platform to actually run some campaigns on, because the target market and target segments were actually there. We were speaking to more
and you could
relevant
focus
people
on them, couldn't you? You could get all the right population. Yeah.
But even within, when you think you've got the right platform, it's again, it's doing some testing, doing some, whether you're going to do some direct marketing through LinkedIn and actually paid for, whether you're doing some organic reach out another way, and you've got to really test what types of things works. And it even comes down to wording sometimes. You just think about wording.
Comes in.
And that's what I think is quite useful sometimes. Try a couple of things, run a campaign 2 to 4 weeks, see how it starts to perform, then either adjust it or try another campaign, and then work out what is the best. The difficulty always is that you want quite instant results, especially in today's environment, and that there's board meetings every month, and they want a report of how well you're doing, and so you're trying to get those figures up, but really you've got to think a bit more medium term in terms of getting that overall trajectory right. And then once you think you've got something right, carry on, do it, a bit like Gary's example with the Kellogg's, but be very mindful, thinking about that's not going to last forever. It could, you could have a curve that goes like that. You could have one that goes like that and goes like that. But you've got to really think about that and just trying to get ahead of that, and have some plans in place. If everybody decides, the whole world decides that Kellogg's cornflakes are no longer nutritional and no good, what else have you got in the background in your portfolio to actually move into a cash cow or that sort of thing?
Well, it is about those different products, but it also could be about different features, right? And we've sort of talked about this in the discussion today, where you may try different campaigns where you're testing a different factors. So it may be the different features that you're trying with a different audience. You gave that example of the consumer market, for the commercial market. Each of those markets for the solar panel industry might have different aspects. There's a whole different situation when you're looking at commercial roof compared to a residential roof, and so there's probably different features that you could test out with commercial compared to a consumer, and then you also might test out the the different medium as well. So, but I also think that there's a big change that's happened recently, which is AI. I mean, AI has been around for a long time, but it's really come to the fore in the last couple of years. And how does the panel see AI impacting marketing and marketers using agile marketing to experiment with both a reaction to how consumers and customers are using AI to do the research for buying and to using that technology on campaign methods. Tony, Ian, Gary, what do you think?
Well, experimentation, we mustn't forget, is resource intensive. So you could be spending a lot of money and it may not be effective. One way of saving that money or reducing the amount of cost is through AI, potentially. So
You're absolutely right, Tony. There's loads of
yeah,
literature on that.
and I think that's where AI it comes in. I think is in terms of bringing together the costing aspect as well as the marketing and project.
Tony, I'm absolutely with you. I mean, I've been a VP of marketing, I've been head of operations for an agency, and the issue was usually could we get it all done,
Yeah,
and so when AI came along for me, it was more, oh wow, we'll actually get to do the things that we always wanted to
yeah.
do, and the customer. I mean, have you found that in your scenarios working with clients?
Yeah, particularly the case when I've been talking to people who are starting to get more and more involved in AI. They're able to get that combination that, if you remember, we were talking about integrating different functional areas. There's a much better chance of doing that through AI than there would have been before. But there's also something that we've got to bear in mind as well, is there's that human element. If you don't have the human element, then you miss out on that relationship again. So it's a balance. So
Right.
I
Yeah,
think it's more likely.
and the thing with AI as well, whilst it could be fantastic, a lot of firms just go into it and just start saying, "Give me a marketing plan for this." Do you know what I mean? And it what it tends to, I've been using it quite a bit lately, and it's really only as good as the prompts and the information that you actually give it.
Yes.
Um, and
Absolutely.
quite often you've got to do a good checking process, but with certain things it can it can help quickly. University sector, one of my colleagues said to me the other day, oh, I had to write 2 new lectures. I put a load of prompts into AI and it delivered a lecture for me within 10 minutes. Yeah, so it whatever, a 20-slide lecture with all the hyperlinks, all the slides within 20 minutes. And he said to me, that would have normally taken me 2 days to put together.
Mm.
I have to do some editing and some stuff, but if you're knowing how to work it and how to use it, it's going to be incredibly useful. And to see where it's going to actually end up going is going to be mind blowing, I think.
Well, I think there's a lot of concern in the industry about AI. There's sort of worry that it's going to take things away. But Ian, what you had said there earlier, where you talked about how companies often forget who the right customer is, and you made a very good, you made a good example of
Yeah.
this. The best technology in the world, even if it's executed well, if you're not targeting the right customer, isn't going to help you. So in fact,
That's true.
it's just going to make it worse. It's just going to make it worse. What do people think about that? I mean, this point, which is, and I think, Tony and others on the panel made a very good point. You have to have that human element, but I'm sort of making the argument that you still have to have someone guiding it. Have you got any thoughts about that aspect?
I think you're right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you're right. I mean, it was actually in there. One of the slides said at the strategic level, you need human input. You need somebody to make a decision, and maybe use AI to work out what your alternatives are. I think job one is work out what AI can do, now. But then think about as it evolves. what can it do for you in the future? So you may have a plan for using it now. And one slide concerned adoption. One of the literature's concerned adoption. And he's saying start simple. Start with a simple function that helps your staff, and then work out in the organization how it actually can be used. And maybe go to more complex functions like something that actually is customer facing and works out decisions for customers and markets to them directly. And
I would totally agree with that, Gary. I think, especially in marketing, there's a lot of what you'd class as bog standard menial tasks that have to happen sort of daily, weekly, social media posts, etc., creating of databases. And I think some of these, what you would class as simpler things, more menial stuff, if you use AI correctly, you can almost get rid of some of your workload. But again, it's only as good as what you tell it to do, and in terms of what you're going to get out of it. So you do have to spend quite a bit of time, almost, training AI up and working out how to best get the results that you want.
Absolutely.
And training up humans to use it as well. Training the humans to use it both ways. I mean, I was talking to John
AI
about
to train the human to train AI.
Yeah, we couldn't get anyone to train you to do it, Tony. That person with that knowledge does not exist. I was talking to John about one example I came across. It was a firm that used chatbots and human operators. So simple level queries, you went to the chatbot, it was 24/7 and so on. But if you needed to talk to somebody for whatever reason, more complex queries, I need to talk to a person, then you could get the human operator. And when they trialed it, and what they found out was the human operators were using the chatbots to when they got into what's the most up-to-date regulations on this. Can you pull this information together? So they're using it for its strengths. So not only were the customers using it, but the operators were using it as well. And that works out well, doesn't it? Because you're playing to the strengths of AI, and you're playing to the strengths of having humans there and not brushing everyone off to the website and some automated response that frustrates you. So that's perfection. Well, a form of perfection.
So one aspect that really sort of stood out for me was something that Ian said originally, which was that sort of aspect that marketers are always the first to leave. And in the United States over the last couple of years, every year it seems we get a report, or every 2 years we get a report saying, oh, the tenure of CMOs has gone down yet again, and they don't seem to have the position that they once have, which is interesting in a way, because I think the marketing world has got more complex, right? We're using digital more and more. But I think one of the reasons for that is because in an IT environment, with IT projects, it's a controlled environment, right? So the IT manager, whoever they are, or the leader, can control that environment and they can have a success. Whereas a marketer, unless they're in a much more chaotic environment, and if they're not doing everything correctly, it's really hard. So how do you think that Agile can help marketers impact leadership perception and then also breaking down silos?
Well, I think breaking down silos in an organization, maybe you need to analyze what the silos are. You've got to understand what they are first. So that may require information that you can pull out of AI, but equally it might be just studying where the problems are, where the bottlenecks are, and where the conflicts are, and who has got the power. As I said, if you one example that was quoted was the marketing department are working for the IT manager. Well, your priorities won't be marketing; they'll be IT first. And as you say, that's a controlled environment. So your marketing projects, which are inherently more messy, may not be being done well, or prioritized, or budgeted correctly. So you've got to look at, where is your money being spent, and who's in charge, and what are your objectives. If your objective is to improve your marketing, then that's not going to work, is it? So you do need to have that executive overview, that strategic view. Sorry.
You've got to really understand the stakeholders in the organization and the different levels of you've talked about, Gary, because in marketing, it's not always the person at the top necessarily that is going to, open the doors for you as such. I think you've got to understand and talk to and communicate a lot with, and it's almost getting them on board, bringing them in as friends, especially when you're going across functions. Because, like I said before, you could do a really good job marketing, but when the project teams have got to deliver the projects, the marketeer then says, "Oh, could you do me a really nice case study on that massive project you've just done? It's brilliant." No, we've got no time. We've got too many projects to go. Mm-hmm. And it's really working that relationship out, working the relationship out, and working the processes out of how you're going to actually achieve that. Because it's not just as straightforward as somebody saying, "There's your case study," because they've got to do a lot of work to develop this case study. So then the marketeers then got to think about, how can I get some of this information where I don't necessarily just have to talk to that person, and quite often it could be in a different database. So the organizations I've found is that they've got a whole database of projects that they've done, and they've made notes on what's happened, but the marketeers don't have access to that.
They don't talk to each other.
No.
Different departments.
And I was in a meeting, I just went, whoa, can the marketeers just not have a view of this database? Because it would make their job so much easier. Oh no, we've got access rights and so it becomes a problem.
Even within that, you've got different CRM systems that don't talk to each other. So even within the marketing departments, you've got different CRM systems that don't speak to each other, and therefore really got to get their own house in order as well. And you've got to think about, I was just thinking as Ian was talking then, perhaps we should be bottom up rather than top down as a way forward.
Well, that's really what Agile is. In a way, it's those teams deciding what they should focus on, but it's also getting executive support to allow them to do that in many instances.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's that support. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
If you don't have it, you're not going to get anywhere, are you?
Mm.
Well, great. Let's come to a close. Are there any last comments from the panel, Gary, Tony, and Ian? Do you want to start? Perhaps we start with Ian and go backwards. Any last comments about the paper and today's discussion?
Oh, I think it's a great paper. It makes some. I think it'd be really useful for. It'd be really useful for the university industry and for practice as well. I think it's just, it gives some really, what I would say, common sense points, which are really valuable. That people should actually go back and look and just go, there's these 7 or 8 things that we should be doing. Let's get these in order, and that will really help you in terms of agile marketing. And thank you for having us on. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Ian. Tony.
Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I found the paper itself got me thinking in different ways as well, and I think the discussion has allowed me to kind of take that further, particularly in those aspects that I mentioned earlier on. So yeah, thanks very much. Enjoyed it.
Great to have you. Great to have you on the panel. And Gary, thank you so much for us putting the paper together. It was nice to read and share with the Agile marketing community, and also doing the presentation today. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I think as Ian said, common sense. As Mark Twain once said, there's nothing common about common sense. Getting that out there, and using it is a great thing. And organizations have to be kind of introspective as well as looking outside. And the holistic approach came out, as well as a very flexible idea of what brand is and projects are. You can run a great project that hits the target but delivers something that isn't wanted anymore, or isn't the right product, or isn't the right advertising campaign, and missed by a mile. So Agile is a way of not doing that. So that's a great technique. Holistic and iterative and learning techniques are the way forward. And I think our next piece of research on AI and marketing will kind of step it up a level, won't it, John?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And thanks for having us, John. That was brilliant.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Well, I want to thank the panel for all joining us today, Gary, Tony, and Ian. And we'll catch you next time at the Boston Agile Marketing Meetup.